All right, kids, how's everybody doing? It is time for another episode of Full Potato Friday. I'm recording this on Sunday, January 21st. Let's find out who went full potato last week. We are going to talk this evening about potentially the worst trial attorney I've ever seen in my entire life. Donald Trump's trial attorney in the E. Jean Carroll case, Alina Habba. Fresh off of what is expected to be a $350 to $400 million judgment against her client in the civil lawsuit brought against him by the New York Attorney General, in which she was instrumental. She's already gotten him sanctioned for $1 million in another frivolous lawsuit that he filed against Hillary Clinton and a bunch of other people. And, E. Jean Carroll is suing Donald Trump for $10 million this time. Liability has already been determined by the judge. But I think that with economic damages, non-economic damages, and punitive damages, I think this jury is going to tag him for upwards of $30 million. Then, who's up after Alina Habba? Little Ron Desantis, who dropped out of the presidential primary today for the GOP and who ran the worst presidential campaign in history. Then we're going to talk about a guy that I'm going to guess most of you have never heard of before, but who is somebody who is very dangerous and somebody who is very, very, very open about what he's doing, why he's doing it, how he's doing it, and what his goals are. A guy named Christopher Rufo out of Florida, big ally of Ron DeSantis. You will be horrified at this individual. Then my fourth Full Potato Friday person who went full potato over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to catch some grief over this. It's Fulton County prosecutor, district attorney, Fani Willis. Yeah, stick around for that one. Okay, let's start with Alina Habba. That trial started this week in Manhattan. It's only going to go a few days. I would expect the trial itself to wrap up this coming week. I'm recording this on Sunday, January 21st. I fully expect this trial to be done, concluded, over, and for us to have a verdict by the end of this week. Tomorrow, I think the plaintiffs have already rested. I'm not entirely sure on that. Donald Trump has said that he wants to testify, which, would basically be akin to a suicide mission. He is constantly, and on an ongoing basis, continuing to defame E. Jean Carroll with Truth Social posts while he is sitting in the courtroom with her and the judge and her attorneys and the jury. He's almost been thrown out of the courtroom a few times because of his conduct. The judge is at his wit's end with Mr. Trump and with Alina Habba. But let's talk about Alina Habba, who previously, prior to her, commencing representation of Fat Nixon, Little Donnie Two Scoops, Comb Over Caligula, Tangerine Tits, Mango Mussolini, was an attorney who specialized primarily in parking garage law in New York and New Jersey. Yeah. But Trump thinks that she's pretty and that she looks good on Fox News. So he hired her to represent him in several multi-million-dollar civil lawsuits. Seems like a plan. So Donald Trump is being sued for a second time by E. Jean Carroll. The first trial was about a year ago. She sued him for defamation. She sued him for sexual abuse. Donald Trump was found liable for defamation and for sexual abuse. The judge in that case later adjudicated as a matter of law that in accordance with New York state criminal statutes, the conduct that Donald Trump had engaged in is consistent with determining that he's a rapist and that he raped her. And so after that trial, in which E. Jean Carroll's attorney was able to secure a $5 million verdict in her favor, Donald Trump continued to defame her and continued to insult her and defame her and insult her and defame her. So they filed another lawsuit. And because the issue of defamation and the sexual assault, sexual abuse, he had been found liable for those counts in the first trial, they are not relitigating those counts in this trial. Liability has already been established. There are two components to these kinds of civil cases: liability and damages. Liability is done. Liability was done and locked in before this trial even started. This trial is only about damages. E. Jean Carroll is suing him for $10 million this time. I believe that she's going to get a verdict substantially beyond that amount. It's going to be a lot more than $10 million. She had an expert witness. Her attorney called an expert witness to the stand. Hey, Flathawk says hi. Her attorney called an expert witness to the stand who said that it would cost in excess of $12 million to rehabilitate E. Jean Carroll's reputation, given the damage that Donald Trump has done to her reputation. That's one of three components of damages. That's economic damages. You also have non-economic damages, pain and suffering, and then you have punitive damages, damages that are imposed as a form of punishment to get him to stop. And so they've already exceeded the $10 million just on economic damages. So this verdict is going to be somewhere between 30 and 50 million bucks, I think. Let's talk about Alina Habba's week in court. It went poorly. Spoiler alert. All right, let's talk about some basic courtroom protocols for trial attorneys. If I have a document that I want to introduce into evidence, such that once it's introduced into evidence, then the jury can see it. And then I can read it to the jury. The jury cannot see or be read the contents of any document that has not been admitted into evidence. And pretty much the only way that you can get documents admitted into evidence during a trial is through witnesses. So let's say that I have a letter that was written by a witness that I have on the stand. How do I get this document into evidence? Well, I would mark it for identification, plaintiff's number one. And I would say, Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Judge would say yes. I would approach the witness on the witness stand. I would hand them this document that's been marked as plaintiff's exhibit number one. I would ask the witness, do you recognize this document? They would say, yes, I do. Can you describe what this document is? Well, this document is a letter that I wrote on such and such a date. And I would say, do you have personal knowledge of the contents of this document? Yeah, I do. I wrote this document. And so you have to lay foundation. Foundation means that the witness knows what the document is, can identify the document, and had some participation in the creation of the document, or has used the document prior to trial, things along those lines. You got to lay the foundation. Then you've got to demonstrate that the document is relevant, because only relevant evidence is admissible. And that's why in Donald Trump's January 6th case, all of his bullshit about the 2020 election being stolen is not going to be admissible into evidence during that trial, because it's not relevant. It's also false. So hand in hand with laying foundation for a document, you also have to demonstrate or establish that document's authenticity. Authenticity, foundation, relevance. Authenticity means the witness testifies, yes, I created this document. Yes, I recognize this document. I've seen this document before. And then the attorney who's trying to get the document moved into evidence say, Your Honor, I would move plaintiff's exhibit number one into evidence. Defense counsel would have an opportunity to object. If they object, then you argue about that for a minute. If they don't, then the document's in evidence. Then, and only then, can you read the contents of the document in the presence of the jury. Alina Habba did not understand any of that. She wanted to introduce some tweets into evidence that she had printed out on paper. And so she picked them up and she had a witness on the stand and she just started reading the tweets. And the judge was like, hang on. What are you doing? Is this documented evidence? And she's like, well, Your Honor, I'm trying to get it into evidence. The judge was like, guess what? You may not read from a document that is not in evidence. And she's like, but I'm trying to get it into evidence. He's like, you can't read from a document in front of the jury when that document is not admitted into evidence. And she's like, well, I don't know how to try this case then, Your Honor. Imagine saying that in open court in front of your client. Imagine being a client of an attorney during a jury trial, and your attorney just stood up in front of the judge and the jury and says, I don't know how to try this case, Your Honor. Full potato. I mean, my God. This is rookie level stuff. It is rookie level stuff. And granted, they don't teach you how to be a trial attorney in law school. They don't teach you how to be an attorney in law school. They teach you about the law and they teach you how to pass a bar exam. They do not teach you about the day-to-day activities and intricacies and practices of being an attorney, which you don't figure out until you're out of law school and you get your first job. But she did not understand even the most basic evidence 101 kind of stuff, man. And she screwed it up in open court in front of everybody, in front of the jury, in front of the judge. The judge basically told her she's a moron. Number one. Number two, she was told by the judge to stand up. Every attorney knows that when you are in court, if you're in a hearing, if you're in a trial, and you are going to address the court, if you are going to speak to the judge and you are sitting at counsel table, before you start speaking, you stand up, period. That's the way it is. That's the way it works in court. She started talking to the judge and she didn't stand up. And the judge was like, yeah, stand up before you address this court. It's a sign of respect. It's a sign of respect. Ms. Habba, when you speak in this courtroom or any other courtroom, you will stand up. Period. That's the way it works. Then she was told to sit down by the judge after she was told to stand up. On Wednesday, she requested an adjournment of the proceedings so Trump could attend the funeral of his late mother-in-law, blah, blah, blah. This is a civil trial. His attendance is not required. He doesn't have to be there. So if he needs to duck out to go to a funeral, he can do that, and he can do that without continuing the trial. So the judge ruled on that, and she, I object. Judge is like, I don't give a shit, man. I ruled on this. She objected. Judge is like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me with these people? He's like, I will hear no further argument on it. I ruled on this. She brought it up again. She continued to speak, and he's like, no. It's like, do you understand that word? No. Sit down. She kept talking. He was like, sit down. She's like, I don't like being spoken to that way, Your Honor. To which he replied, your request is denied. Sit down. Here's what you need to understand. In a civil trial, in a court, or in a criminal trial, when you are at the trial court level, in that courtroom, during that trial, whether it's a jury trial or a bench trial, that judge is God, period. That judge controls every goddamn thing that goes on in that courtroom, and there's nothing you can do about that as an attorney. If that judge rhetorically punches you in the balls as hard as he or she can, you have to stand there, and when they're done, you say, thank you, Your Honor, and then you sit down. That's the way it works during a civil trial, a criminal trial, a jury trial, a bench trial. The judge in that courtroom is God and controls everything, period. And you just deal with it. That's reality. Then she was trying to cross-examine E. Jean Carroll, and she was trying to use a deposition transcript to do that. She was trying to use prior deposition testimony that E. Jean Carroll had given under oath, for which we get a transcript. E. Jean Carroll was on the stand in the courtroom, and Alina Habba was trying to use her deposition transcript to kind of trip her up, to try to impeach her. Basically like, well, you're saying this now, but when we took your deposition, you said X, Y, and Z. And again, there is a very specific process and procedure by which you have to go through in order to use a deposition transcript in court to impeach a witness who is on the witness stand. And one of the steps that you have to go through is you have to provide the judge with a copy of the deposition transcript so that the judge can follow along with what you're reading. So that the judge you can say, Your Honor, I'd like to cite to page 57, lines 19 through 25 of the deposition transcript. Then the judge opens up his binder that you provided to him that had, or her, that has all of the transcripts, and he's and then counsel, he says to defense counsel, do you have any objection? And they're going to look at it and they get an opportunity to object. If they object, you argue about it. If they don't, then they don't. And the judge will review it and say, proceed, counsel. You got to go through the steps. She doesn't even know what the steps are. She has no idea what the hell she's doing. Then the judge made several rulings which she ignored. She was on the receiving end of 14 objections in a row during her opening statement, and then the judge ruled on specific issues in the case, and she ignored those rulings. So she went full potato. She went full potato last week. Legal experts have described her performance as embarrassing, and that she has already made the jury dislike her intensely. She's just, oh my God. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years, and hearing about what's coming out of this courtroom is like some of the worst stuff that I've ever heard about another trial attorney. I mean, she is just as dumb as a sack of hair, man. And that has absolutely nothing to do with her gender. It has to do with the fact that she's sucking up to Donald Trump for money. Because according to a recent FEC filing, Trump's campaign has paid her firm $2.5 million over the last year and a half. Yeah, she's one of the attorneys that actually is getting paid. Trump's campaign has paid her firm $2.5 million over the last 18 months. It's not bad money. It's not worth the price. It's not worth it, but that's not bad money. Little Ron Desantis, he dropped out of the GOP presidential primary race today after having run the worst presidential primary campaign in the last 100 years. He raised $200 million, pissed it away, basically lit it on fire, got less than 30,000 votes for $200 million, and then dropped out. Came in second in one caucus, didn't even compete in any primaries, didn't win anything, went through $200 million for nothing. Remember back to Election Day in 2022. He won re-election as governor of Florida by like 20, 22 points, something like that. It's a big margin. It was a big margin. It was a significant margin. A lot of that had to do with the fact that the Democrats nominated a potato, Charlie Crist. But DeSantis won a 20, 22-point margin. Nothing to sneeze at. Instead of taking advantage of that at the time and immediately getting into the GOP race for president, he waited 6 months, during which time Donald Trump was absolutely savaging him and, calling him meatball McPudding fingers and whatever he was calling him. Actually, I think I got that from Chasing Oz. But Trump is just savaging this guy. And Ron DeSantis was not responding, which made him look weak. But following DeSantis' re-election as governor, starting at the beginning of 2023, in polling, DeSantis was polling at like 35% among Republican voters. He was ahead of Donald Trump. He was beating Donald Trump in a race that neither one of them had gotten into yet. Oh, Trump may have already gotten in by that point, but DeSantis hadn't gotten in yet. And he was polling at 35%. He was beating Trump in the GOP primary. And so what do you do in that scenario? That's right. You wait 6 months to get into the race that you're actually winning. So he got all these big dollar donors to give him $200 million. He hired this consultant to run his super PAC named Jeff Rowe, that's the same guy who ran Jeb Bush's super PAC back in the day in 2016, where they pissed away $100 million and didn't win a single primary. And this guy, Jeff Rowe, he's like the ultimate GOP grifter. Every single campaign that he gets anywhere near just crashes and burns. And these people keep hiring him and paying him millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. This guy has become, he's probably worth $50 million based on a record that consists entirely of failure. 100% based on failure. I don't know that he's ever won anything. And these people keep hiring him. After what he did for Jeb Bush in 2016, Ron DeSantis looks at that at the beginning of 2023 and he's like, yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy. I want that guy. I want that guy running my super PAC. And in less than a year, they burnt through $200 million of other people's money with absolutely nothing to show for it. It's just gobsmacking. It is absolutely gobsmacking. They had no strategy. When DeSantis came into the campaign, there are 30 to 35% of Republican base voters that will vote for only Donald Trump and nobody else. And so on the one hand, it's like the GOP is stuck with Donald Trump, because if Donald Trump's not the nominee, that 30 to 35% stays home and doesn't vote for any of the down ticket candidates in the House of Representatives, the Senate, state houses, governors. Republicans lose all of those things because this 30 to 35% of diehard Trump supporters will only vote for Trump, period. But there's also about 10% of the GOP base that are never Trumpers, that will never vote for Trump under any circumstances. Okay, fine. So call that 40% of the GOP electorate. That leaves 60% of GOP voters who are willing to vote for another candidate. They support Trump, but they're willing to vote for another Republican candidate. So instead of focusing on that 60%, which is a majority, when Ron DeSantis came in, he thought he was going to out-Trump Trump and chip away at that 30 to 35% who will vote for nobody but Trump. It was the dumbest goddamn strategy on the planet right from the outset. You add on top of that all of the expectations that people had for him, and then he started doing what? That's right, he started talking. DeSantis started talking into microphones and going out and interacting with other human beings, and everybody was like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? They saw him try to laugh. They saw him try to smile. They saw how short he is. They saw that he's wearing lifts and high-heeled cowboy boots. They saw that he has absolutely zero ability to interact with other human beings socially whatsoever. And they're like, It's like that meme from that bachelor party movie quote where they're like, you know, we fucked up. That was Ron DeSantis's campaign. That was his entire campaign. We fucked up. He hasn't even been in for a year and he's done. And he wasted $200 million. It's unimaginable to me. Now, let's get to one of Ron DeSantis's very, very good friends, Christopher Rufo. Why am I talking about Christopher Rufo? He's a right-wing activist who spearheaded the campaign to get Harvard to fire their president within the last couple of weeks. I can't remember her name. Hang on one second. Claudine Gay, a black woman who was either the first or second black woman to be president of Harvard. And Christopher Rufo didn't like that Harvard had a president who was a black woman because he doesn't like DE&I. He doesn't like diversity hires. He doesn't like it when people of color or women get jobs that white men, according to him, are more qualified for. So he's primarily responsible, along with some Harvard donors, including Bill Ackman, I think is his name, the billionaire, whose wife is also a plagiarist, turns out. They spearheaded the campaign to get rid of Claudine Gay, specifically because she was a black woman. So let's learn a little bit about Christopher Rufo. He's a conservative activist. He is on the board of trustees for New College in Florida, having been put there by Ron DeSantis. New College in Florida being one of the most liberal and diverse colleges in Florida, which Ron DeSantis and Christopher Rufo didn't like, had very strong DE&I program, had diversity throughout the student body and throughout their professors. Yeah, and what does that mean? That's right. That means that those places were being taken by people who weren't as qualified as white, straight Christian men. So we can't have that. Can't have that. It just... And again, I don't want to get sued for defamation, but to me, my own personal opinion, this is not something that's based on fact. It is based on my own opinion, my own feelings on the situation after having read several articles about Mr. Russo. It is my personal opinion of the belief that Christopher Rufo is fucking gross. It is my belief that he is a racist, a misogynist. Again, just my opinion. Just my opinion. He was the guy who in 2020 and 2021, you remember all of a sudden, out of fucking nowhere, critical race theory is now a thing in schools, K through 12. Where did that come from? They're teaching critical race theory? I've never heard of that before. And he's the one who turned that into a thing. Critical race theory is a graduate level college course. It has never, ever been taught in any K through 12 classroom anywhere in the United States, ever. Christopher Rufo used white fear and this new thing that he discovered called critical race theory. Like, oh, the schools, they're indoctrinating your kids. They're making your white school children feel guilty and bad and sad about being white because their teachers in the second grade are telling them that it's a bad thing to be white in the United States of America because of all the things that white people did to black people in the United States throughout history. And then they banned books about black people. They banned books by black people. They banned the phantom critical race theory. They banned American history. They banned African American history. They banned AP history because you can't have white students feel uncomfortable in the classroom when they learn about the 400-year-long history of what white people have done to black people in this country. Not to mention, over that same period of time, what white people have done to the First Nations populations and Native Americans in this country. So he's the guy who came up with, let's make critical race theory a boogeyman and throw everything into that pot. And he is very open and very honest about this and what he's doing and why. He is spearheading the attack on educational institutions in this country for the purpose of destroying them and sowing doubt in them. Because why? That's right. He loves charter schools. He loves charter schools that are funded with public tax dollars that teach kids Christianity, white nationalist Christianity, using your tax dollars to do it, after having sown doubt and distrust in the public education system. And then the added layer on top of that is that once CRT kind of started to peter out again, well, then he found the LGBTQ community and teachers and the LGBTQ community and the trans community and school teachers. They're all groomers. They're all groomers in schools, in public schools. All of your kids are being groomed for sexual abuse and pedophilia by teachers and trans people and the LGBTQ community. It's just fucking gross, man. It's just gross. It's gross and disgusting, and it is hate. It is nothing but hate being put forth in the pursuit of power and control. And it's just fucking gross, man. It's hard for me to talk about this stuff sometimes because I get a little angry and I get agitated. I've lived in San Francisco for 22 years. I mean, it's one of the most diverse cities in the United States. Obviously, I have tons of friends of color who are minorities. I have tons of friends who are in the LGBTQ community. I have trans friends. I mean, that's San Francisco. And it's like the people who guys like Christopher Rufo are attacking and demonizing nationwide on a daily basis are people who are important to me, and they're my friends. And they're people who I see and talk to on a daily basis. And it is so fucking enraging to me. It's just so fucking enraging to me. Oh God, man. He hates diversity training. He hates DE&I. He just demonizes, again, he demonizes every single person who is not a straight, cisgendered, white, Christian male. And says everybody who's not that is molesting your kids and grooming your kids and indoctrinating your kids in public school. So we got to do away with public schools, and we got to have these charter schools, which are going to, basically be evangelical madrasas in the United States. Oh, and they're going to be funded with public tax dollars, and you won't have any say in that. I'm not even going to read the rest of that. He just pisses me off. He really pisses me off. Okay, so let's close out with someone who I have an unimaginable amount of respect and admiration for, but who made one of the most colossal fucking mistakes of bad judgment that I've seen in over a decade. And I say that as someone who has had instances of bad judgment that you can't even fathom. So I speak from experience, kids. Oh, man. Fani Willis hired an attorney named Nathan Wade to lead the Georgia prosecution of Donald Trump and 18 others, which so far has been going great. They got indictments against 19 people out of a grand jury. 4 of those people have pleaded guilty, including 3 of Donald Trump's senior inner circle attorneys pleaded guilty to felonies. for their efforts to overturn the 2020 election and with all the fake elector bullshit that they were doing. So far, so good. Sounds great. Well, the allegation has been made that she's having an improper romantic relationship with that attorney that she hired to prosecute this case, a guy named Nathan Wade. At the same time, Nathan Wade is going through an incredibly contentious divorce. And his soon-to-be ex-wife has subpoenaed Fani Willis to testify in their divorce case. None of this, and I want to stress this, I want to make sure that people hear this, none of this has anything at all to do whatsoever with the facts of this case, with the indictments that were brought in this case, with the prosecution of this case, with the execution of the prosecutions in this case. Their relationship, however personal it may be, has absolutely nothing to do with the substance of the criminal case, the RICO case that was brought against 19 people, including Donald Trump, and to which 4 people have already pled guilty to crimes. Those 4 people didn't plead guilty to crimes because Fani Willis is allegedly having a sexual relationship with one of the prosecutors. They pled guilty to crimes because of the facts that had been gathered against them and had been presented to a grand jury, and that the defense attorneys for those defendants knew that the prosecutors were going to be able to prove in court. Do you want to do 20 years or do you want to plead guilty to something and get probation? Whether or not there's an affair going on has nothing to do with the case at all. However, Donald Trump and right-wing media in this country are what they are. Donald Trump and right-wing media and Republicans in Congress are going to use these. Look at what they've done with the allegations against Hunter Biden. Allegations for which they have absolutely no evidence. They've been beating that shit to death for over a year. They're impeaching a president of the United States over fabricated bullshit that they have no evidence for. What do you think they're going to do with this? It just shows unimaginably bad judgment on her part. Just unimaginably bad judgment on her part. This is the biggest case of her career. She is trying to prosecute a former president of the United States of America, and you're banging the lead prosecutor that you hired to do the prosecution? Are you kidding me? You think we're going to see anything like this out of Jack Smith? No, we're not. It is just horrifically bad judgment that is going to give Donald Trump an opportunity to change the narrative, to change the subject, to beat this like a drum. And every host on Fox News is going to do the exact same thing. I'm incredibly disappointed in her. I have an unimaginable amount of respect for her and her willingness to bring this case. As a Black woman in the South, bringing this case against Donald Trump and a bunch of his lawyers, can you imagine? Can you even imagine the death threats that she's gotten since she indicted this case? I'm sure that she's got to have security 24/7. And will have to have security 24/7 for the next several years. And you're going to give away the high road by allegedly doing this? Fuck, man, come on. It's so disappointing, and it's so incredibly unnecessary. And it's going to change the entire narrative of this case on the right. We've all seen the interviews with Trump supporters when the interviewer is asking him about, whatever court case. Oh, that's a political prosecution. Joe Biden weaponized the DOJ. It's the deep state. We've all heard that bullshit from these people. This is going to make all of that 10 times worse. 10 times worse. And it just bums me out and makes me sad because it was completely avoidable and entirely 100% unnecessary. It's an unforced error. It's going to be a distraction from now until the end of the case. It's going to taint this case forever, period. Even though it has nothing to do with the facts, it has nothing to do with the law, it has nothing to do with the grand jury process. Every single witness who's going to testify against Trump is going to be a Republican. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is now going to be the narrative on the right for this case, period, forever. Unforced error, unavoidable. Anyway, all right, we are out of time. Thank you for joining me for Full Potato Friday. Pardon me. You can get the merch at hawkmerchstore.com. And as always, I want to give huge thank you to my brother Falcon for his wisdom, his guidance, his knowledge, his expertise, and everything that he brings to this program. It would not exist without him. And this graphic and all of our other graphics would not exist without our good buddy Wiseacre, who just hit it out of the park on all of this stuff. The next year is going to suck. Be safe. Take care of your mental health. Take care of your physical health, your spiritual and emotional health. I would recommend getting a dog. Dogs make everything better. Trust me on that. Until next time, everybody be safe and have a good time all the time, Marty. See ya.